If Georgia's defense plays the way they did in Austin, Texas for the rest of the season, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. Georgia's going to win the national championship because what I saw on Saturday night was one of the best defensive performances we've seen during the Kirby Smart era at Georgia. I'm going to break all of that down and explain why Georgia's the favorite to win the national championship in my eyes. Again now, I said after the Mississippi State game, this team can win a national championship. I believed it last week, and I just thought they would lose to Texas. I didn't think they could not win the national championship. But that performance from the defense is what I was looking to see. Going into the game, we were talking about the concerns about the secondary, the concerns about the number of sacks, getting to the quarterback and not just creating pressure, stopping those explosive plays down the field in the secondary. Well, they came out and did both. They locked down Texas's passing attack. They confused Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. They got to the quarterback 7 different times, 10 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. Not only was it a damn near perfect day for the players, but Glenn Schumann, Kirby Smart, the whole defensive staff, they get an A+ as well. The scheme that they put together confused Texas from the start. Quinn Ewers, who is supposed to be one of the greatest quarterback prospects of all time, I'm not calling him a bust, but he had no idea how to maneuver through Georgia's defense. But I'm going to talk about more of that in just a second, but I want to give a shout out to some of the other top performances that we've seen from a Kirby Smart defense over the last several years, right? Going back to, let's say 2017, because 2016, forgettable season. So let's start 2017. The game against Notre Dame. Now, they gave up 19 points, but that was the true breakout game for Roquan Smith. He was all over the place. They made turnover after turnover after turnover. They won the game late with a turnover. Davin Bellamy with the hit. Lorenzo Carter, I believe, forced the fumble. But that was an all-time defensive performance for me. Now, a game that I think you could say started the run that they would have that year and, over the next 6 years. 2017 at Tennessee, they blew them out. When you shut out Tennessee in Neyland Stadium, it's an all-timer. I think 41 to Tennessee was the final score. 5-star performance there. 2021 against Clemson, again, an all-timer. That set the tone for the rest of the season. One of the greatest defenses in college football history. 10-3 win. Georgia's touchdown came on a pick 6. So an all-time 5-star defensive performance. Against Arkansas, I believe, 37-0 win. Total domination. Against Michigan, 2021 in the Orange Bowl, after giving up 40-plus points to Alabama in the SEC title game, they crushed Michigan, crushed them. Nakobe Dean, phenomenal. The entire defense was fantastic. 2022 against Oregon, phenomenal. Against TCU, obviously in that championship game, but against Tennessee, number 1 Tennessee offense coming to Athens, couldn't move the ball. Georgia just sacked him again. Hendon Hooker was sacked just now by Javon Bullard, 2 years later. And then I think you have to put that 2024, last week's defensive performance against Texas in that too. 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, but it was the way they did it. They stopped the run. The front 7 was fantastic. They did not let Texas run the ball, but they were creative defensively as well. I mean, on the Dalen Everett interception, you go back and watch, he's in full man coverage. His hips are squared, his feet are squared to the receiver. Quinn Ewers thinks it's man coverage. He turns out it's zone. He turns around, he picks the ball off. Same thing on the sack, right? He thinks he's in man coverage. He's lined up. And the second the ball snapped, he turns and he goes and he flies to the quarterback. Quinn Ewers was just confused all day long. And thanks to Glenn Schumann, Kirby Smart, that staff, but the players too. I mean, C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, Jalen Walker was all over the place. Jalen Walker looked like a top 10 pick, one of the best defensive players in college football. That's what I've been waiting to see from him. He's been a good player. He's been a good pass rusher. Now he's a total complete player, total package, and that's what you expect out of someone in his 3rd year. He was a big-time recruit. They got him for a reason. He's got the frame. He's got the intelligence, smart kid. He's got all the tools necessary, and he dominated. A lot of those sacks were coverage sacks as well. The quarterback just, whoever it was, Archer, Quinn Ewers, they just couldn't get the ball out. I mean, no one was even remotely close to open. They couldn't even throw it away, and they're getting sacked. So we saw the emergence of the pass rush. We saw the versatility. Different guys, so many guys being able to line up in so many different places. their ability to confuse Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, I'm thinking like, did they just not show that all against Mississippi State? I mean, they showed different things, but it was so much more effective against Texas. And that's, when you go back and you look at this defense, it's not going to be as good as it was in 22 and 21 because they haven't been as consistent. They haven't dominated every single offense they've gone up against. They didn't tackle well against Auburn. They gave up 28 points, obviously, and I guess into the 40s. What was that game against Alabama? They gave up 40, or was it just 30? I don't even remember the final score. I remember they got down 28-0, something a previous defense in the Kirby Smart era, at least in the past 3 years, would not let happen. This one did. But they looked incredible against Texas. They were flying to the football. That's the defense we saw against Clemson, right? It felt like there were 14 guys out there. Everyone, they're reacting and not thinking. It's Alabama. They hadn't seen those plays before in the first half. They were brand new, so they were thinking before reacting. They were a step or two late, and that cost them, right? And it cost them to let up 28 points. But they've had some big-time efforts before, and we've seen elite play from the players and elite scheme and game planning from the coaches, and we saw it against Texas. How many times are we going to see that performance, right? Are we going to see that every week moving forward? I think that's tough to say because they gave up 31 to Mississippi State and again 30 or 40 to Alabama. And Auburn ran the ball a little bit on them. Georgia didn't tackle well. I wouldn't say they didn't play well. They just didn't tackle well defensively there. So, you can't expect them to dominate Tennessee and dominate Ole Miss and Georgia Tech and Florida when they didn't dominate Mississippi State, But if they can play like that in the biggest moments, especially against Ole Miss and Tennessee, they could bring their A or their B or C game against Florida and win. That still might be a closer game than people want to admit or want to expect. But I think they're going to have to play really sound defense against Ole Miss and Tennessee if they want to come out with a win. They've shown they can do it. They just showed they, could be the best defense in the country still. They're not going to be statistically because they've let a couple games really kind of get away from them. If you want to say 31 points is getting away from them, I would, because the Georgia standard, right? The defense is putting them on the side. No one into our end zone, right? Well, if you give up 31 points, that's called a disaster, right? If your whole theme is we're not letting anyone score and team A scores 31 on you, right? You win the game, but it ain't pretty and stuff's got to change, and it did. And it changed in a big way against Texas. Are we going to see dominant defense against Florida? I would expect them to, right? Because this is their standard. This is what they set out to do every single game. So they expect to do it. Will they do it? They can. They got to get the job done. They got to be more consistent defensively. Because if they play as good as they did last week and Jalen Walker is going off and Mykel Williams is healthy, and Warren Brinson is taking on double teams and making plays, and this is your Stackhouse, Tristan Miller, those guys are doing their job up front. Dalen Everett is turning into very good Dalen Everett, making plays. Julian Humphreys sound in coverage. You have good linebacker play, Raylan Wilson, C.J. Allen. You've got playmaker Malachi Starks. You've got K.J. Bolden trying to knock guys' heads off, right? Dan Jackson, veteran safety. Janelle Aguero looked to take a big step in the right direction. So the talent's been there. The consistency hasn't. But the level of elite play that they've shown has been there. And we saw that, if that even makes sense. Did that make sense? It did in my head. I don't know if it came across that way. They've shown the ability to be elite. And they've shown at their best, they're probably the best defense in college football. They're going to have to play like that if they go up against an Oregon or an Ohio State or a Tennessee or Alabama again. I don't think Alabama's going to make the playoff. But I guess there's still a chance, right? There's still a chance Georgia could face Alabama again this year, right? I think you don't want to see Alabama again if you're Georgia. I don't care how bad Alabama is. It's probably the last team you still want to see, right? If you're a Georgia fan, you're looking at all these other teams. Okay, Georgia can beat Oregon. Georgia can beat Ohio State. Georgia can beat anybody out there, especially if they play defense the way they did against Texas. But and they can. They've got the players to do it, and they've got the coaches to do it as well. So this is there's a lot on their plate. There's a lot of expectations, as there should be for this defense. But they made a statement in Austin, Texas, and the statement was they are still top dog as far as defense goes in college football. They've got the players. The players are healthier. They're making plays now. And if they can, start playing more consistent elite play together as a unit, this team's going to be really, really tough to stop. It's going to make things easier for the offense. But defensively, if Georgia starts hitting their stride and can play like that every week, I think it could be a wrap. Could be a wrap. I think I said it was a wrap in the beginning of the video. It could be a wrap. Might be a wrap. We'll see. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on Dawg Post.